A Look Under the Shell is an Everlook Broadcasting Company production. This is A Look Under the Shell, Turtle Wow's premiere show, all about what goes on underneath the hood, under the hood, if you will, when it comes to how we make the turtle soup tick. I'm joined today by Vrograg Fishlayer. Vrograg, once again this week, good day to you.
Hello. Thank you for having me as always. It's a pleasure. I'm very excited about today's special guest.
We will be joined by Akalix here, community manager for Turtle, later on in the show. But for now, this show is going to be all about the South American servers, which I for one, I don't know a ton about what's gone into this, so we're super excited to have Nito, the lead with Turtle, on this project. Nito, how are you today?
Hi, guys. I'm doing great, thanks. I really appreciate being here.
Now, before we go ahead and get into things, Nito, you're a new face for us. We've never had you on the show before. Could you tell us what you do on the team, why you're associated with the SA server launch, and how you got put into that position?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a loaded question.
It's a lot, so don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
It's all good. So, I've been partners with the Turtle WoW team for many years. I'm more of a developer and sort of system operator, manager type person. So I wasn't super into the community of Turtle WoW until recently. And then when we started talking about expansions and regions in the world where we wanted to go and what we wanted to look at, South America came up as a really big population in our player base that, you know, they were compromising their latency and ping needs, you know, to be able to experience the great thing of Turtle WoW. So it was kind of a no-brainer to say, I love this idea. I'm going to take it on. I'll take all my experience. I've been in business management for my entire life. So we took all my development information and knowledge and experience, and we said, let's look at South America.
Now, you mentioned a couple things, and I'm going to let Vrograg get a word in here eventually one day, perchance. You mentioned that there was an awareness on the turtle team's part that the South American audience was decently sized and it had been compromising on ping and latency. How did the team and yourselves find out about that? Was there some kind of community effort? How did you guys become aware that there was this need for these servers?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the great things about Turtle WoW is that we do have the ability to communicate very easily with our player base. As anybody who has been on Discord knows, there is a lot of voices out there, and typically game developers don't have such a thin veil between the development team and the player base. There's usually a lot of people in between or steps in between where it's really hard to communicate the players' wants and needs and perspectives to the people that really matter, right? So there's usually a corporate thing happening there. Thankfully, with Turtle WoW, we don't have that. We have a structure, but it's a lot looser, a lot more accessible to the players. So how it all kind of came around is really just regular conversation over the past couple of years with key members of our communities, especially in Europe, where a lot of South American players are playing right now because they love Turtle WoW. They love what we've done with the brand, and they want to experience it, but they have to do it in through a connection to Europe. And the biggest challenge there for them is the latency. Is if you're playing on 200 ms ping to 200 to 500 ms ping just to play the game, that can be quite frustrating. So we hear that a lot, and we hear that from all over the world. And so we gotta make a step forward somewhere, and that's kind of what drove that beginning conversation.
So just and I'm going to pose a theoretical to you, and I don't
Okay.
like doing that to people on the fly, but
It's
screw
okay.
it, we're going to try it anyhow.
Do it to me all the time.
So let's say someone is Rogue, I can't do this to me, buddy. My brain's on thin ice.
You're good. You're good. You got this.
So let's say a player is trying to connect from Brazil. Obviously, there is not, hey, I'm in Brazil. There's a wire that goes directly to where our servers are in the EU. That doesn't really exist. How are players having to connect from, again, let's say Brazil to Nordinar?
I mean, there are wires. There's lots of wires. I'm sure you've heard in the news recently all the shenanigans happening with the undersea internet cables and lines that are being cut by people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
so that's
there's not
real.
one that goes directly from, again, let's say Brazil to the location here in
Right,
in
yeah.
the EU.
It doesn't go from like your house to the Turtle WoW server. No,
Mhm.
there's a lot of intermediaries in between. There's how networking, a very basic understanding of networking is it's kind of like lightning. Energy is going to travel as easily as or it's going to travel the path that's easiest to get to its destination. So networking is very similar to that in a lot of cases. Where if you're in Brazil or you're in Argentina or somewhere in South America, and you're looking to connect to Nordinar in France, I think is where our server is. It's going to find the easiest way. So sometimes the easiest way is to go through the undersea lane right from South America, and probably maybe even to Africa and up. Who knows? But I think most of the connections come from South America, go through the United States, and then over into Europe. I think is the easiest way. So that is the longer it takes for it to route and go through different ISPs and different owners of whatever networking infrastructure is there. The longer that takes, the higher the MS for it to bounce back to you and to have a stable connection.
All right, last question before I let Vrograg get it. Like I'll say 3 or 4 words in, maybe. With servers going up in South America, is this something that those of us in the United States may want to consider trying out at some point?
I mean, yeah, probably. It'd be interesting to see. I actually haven't tested what a connection to our South American region would look like from North America versus what it looks like in Europe right now, because that's a good question. It could be similar. It could be quicker. I know from speaking to a lot of South American players, actually, they have connected to other servers in North America, not Turtle WoW related, and have had really great ping, better than what they have in Europe or North America to Europe. So it's interesting to see, and it could be really good. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see.
I'm super curious about this when we can actually start to experiment a little bit. Certainly, I might have to hop on and try. Okay, Vrograg, with everything we're talking about, with the initial concept of why we're getting South America servers, what do you got? What questions do you have?
Oh, I have a number of them, but I'm going to try to keep it a little bit more concise. One thing I noticed about and the name of the server is South Seas, as I
Yep.
understand it, and the server will have Spanish and Portuguese localizations. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So I'm wondering, what was that process like? Because I understand a lot of the what we would consider vanilla aspects of WoW. That's probably already in the can in some ways and can be taken from somewhere else, copy paste, what have you. However, Turtle does have a lot of custom content. So I'm curious to know, how big is the South American team, and especially how long was the process to do localizations for all of the custom Turtle content?
Yeah, great question. It's been definitely an undertaking. It hasn't been simple by any stretch, and that's because of just the working in the private server scene as it is. There is a lot of different aspects to how we get the game to the player, and it's not just we flip a switch and you guys are good to go. Especially when you have a custom project just like Turtle WoW, where the client as well has to be modified. A lot of the private server scene for World of Warcraft has been really focused around the server side of things, and a lot of server modifications. And Turtle WoW is the first project to really take the client modifications and run with it, and that comes with a large overhead of manpower to modify. So for South America is probably our biggest translation project that we had since we've launched. China was another big one, but we were only dealing with one language there, although it was it's quite different from standard English.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
A little more challenging there. But yeah, no, South America it's been great. I have a great team working with us. We've probably got about 20 people right now that are 2025 that are all CMs, community managers, or game masters, and then they've also kind of filled the role of helping us to translate. So a good chunk of them is Portuguese speaking, another good chunk of them are Spanish speaking, and we knew that when we went into South America, we couldn't just do one language because that's just not the demographic down there. There are so many different dialects down there and so many different languages actually, but Portuguese and Spanish are the biggest. But it's been great. For I think the Portuguese side has probably been the most challenging because there was already some work done by Blizzard with Spanish. So there was already a Spanish patch out there. So we just had to add our custom Turtle WoW client stuff. Our Turtle WoW stuff to the client and to the database on top of the Blizzard stuff that already existed. But Portuguese actually didn't have that. Portuguese
Oh,
was never
interesting.
translated. Yeah, it was never translated by Blizzard. So we had to use our team kind of in overdrive for that, and it's a lot of work. It took us a couple of weeks, but it's looking great right now. We're just putting on the finishing touches and doing all of our testing right now for it.
Oh wow, that's great to hear. I understand that every localization, every little pocket of culture that's interacted with WoW has their own approach, has their own sort of way they look at the game. And,
Mhm.
I understand that you're someone, maybe you don't have a huge breadth of knowledge about WoW, but I'm just curious in your experience with dealing with the EU team and now dealing with the South American team. Are you noticing any noticeable cultural differences between what kind of culture both of the teams are trying to cultivate or what kind of audience it's attracted? Because, you know, I've noticed this quite a bit between the EU and the Southeast Asian servers, where there's definitely different priorities the players have and even how they approach the same obstacles, the same strategies. So, I know, as you were saying, there was Spanish localization, but with Portuguese having its first localization here, I'm just curious, really, like, what can you say about the sort of the feel, the vibe of the server culture so far?
Um, yeah, the Chinese Southeast Asia realm, their culture is definitely different. I in my main job I worked for many years with a Chinese company, and the way that they look at things is a lot different from the European mindset and North American mindset. It's just different upbringings and different priorities and things. In South America, I haven't really noticed as big of a divide as I did in terms of the mentality of processing mindsets and stuff. But there's definitely a lot of pride in South America,
Mhm.
uh, especially for their language. There is a little bit of that, which is pretty normal throughout the world to have some people being very proud to speak Spanish or very proud to speak Portuguese. But overall, the community's been pretty standard in terms of the average WoW, or really the average gaming community, where you get a lot of those very vocal minority people and a lot of
Yeah.
troublemakers and whatever, and you sort through that. And um, but overall, it's been a really great crowd so far. We're almost at 20,000 members in our Spanish Discord right now.
Oh,
Or
that's
sorry,
awesome.
our South American Discord. I shouldn't say Spanish.
No.
uh,
You just said they were really proud.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got to be careful. But yeah, we're almost at 20,000 now, and they're working hard. One of the biggest things that I've seen with these guys actually is we did a Discord contest to help us boost the numbers in there, and they really killed it by going and spreading word of mouth. Like we wouldn't be at almost 20,000 now without the community getting out there and telling people about us. Um, yeah, it's been great.
I'm so happy to hear that about the community. And we did talk briefly about the location. It's going to be in South America. South America is a big spot, so I just think it's worth mentioning. The server is going to be in Lima, Peru. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we updated the Discord hat today to be a Peruvian hat.
I was wondering what that was all about. I'm like, huh? What are they? Oh, okay. Now it makes a lot more sense. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
use
with
that
that
hat
location,
everywhere
that's
down
great.
there.
I
Apparently, I
mean,
don't know.
I do know that some people who I've spoken to that I raid with in the EU guilds from the US West Coast are actually looking at that as a potential spot to maybe play the game as well, because uh, geographically, Peru's a lot closer than Western Europe. I think for Eastern US, it might be kind of a crapshoot, but
Mhm.
it's very interesting to see. I mean, of course, obviously the next project is helping out the Australians.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, can't let them suffer down there on their own.
Now, did you see the
Yeah.
thing I mentioned about how potentially the sun might never set on Turtle WoW based on the
Yeah.
server locations?
Yeah. Yeah.
Akalix and I were talking about it. It's very close. It's like maybe there might be an hour of darkness, but I think it's great to see, and it shows that there's a lot of passion behind the private server community, and everyone that I've engaged with in my own little Turtle WoW news community, who is Spanish or Portuguese speaking, they have just been blowing up my comments and stuff, like acting like I made it happen. They are so excited. I can't even tell you. I have like a couple very dedicated people who, English, they technically know it, but when I talked about a South American server, they were just over the moon.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of people are really hyped for it, and like you said, the connection part is a part of it. And I just double checked, since you guys asked about the connection from the U.S. We actually had somebody in the U.S. do a latency check, and it was like somewhere around 80 to 70 ms to the server that we currently have in Lima. So it actually might be a good viable option for them.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a real good positive. Plus, there are a lot of people that are playing on Northern R or are thinking about playing on Northern R, and like, shucks, we can't play. Everything's all progressed. It's all old hat. No one cares. But people that might want to play on a realm that's going to be actually having phases, like that might be interesting to them.
Mhm.
Just one thing is, I don't think we made it clear or not. Will there be? We know there's going to be Portuguese and Spanish localization. Does that mean there's also going to be GMs who speak those languages? And is there also going to be English language support?
Yeah, for sure. Every single one of our staff members speaks English. That's the baseline, because we wanted to make sure that as the Turtle WoW, as the management team, we were able to communicate our brand. We didn't want any sort of miscommunications, and we didn't want to deliver an experience by accident just due
Yeah.
to miscommunication, right? So yeah, we'll have Spanish, Portuguese, and English support in the GM world, and well, in the whole support world.
Oh, I think that's awesome, and I'm really. I've even tried to look at ways to take some of my programming, and I've asked around people about like, hey, does anyone know like a person that could translate in Spanish or Portuguese? Because I would love to really embrace the South Seas realm as a place where we can all kind of together come together as a community and sort of make our voices heard and sort of gather around the subjects that we really care about. And you were mentioning it before, the Turtle team does a really good job of communication from them isn't always great, but they are good at least seeing what we have to say, and they're much better than large corporations at getting a pulse of their own community. And I think that's one of its biggest strengths. And I think the fact that there is a South American server going up is a sign of that exact thing.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a detriment how much we want to be connected with the player base, because we have that we have such passionate people that we listen to probably too much than we should listen to. Everyone's got their own perspectives and ideas on what they should do in with the game, but overall, I think it's definitely helped us be that leading private server community by having that accessibility.
Now,
Yeah.
one thing you mentioned, one thing that I almost said Akalix mentioned. No, Vrograg mentioned earlier was phases. We're going to talk about that in our second segment, but don't think I didn't hear that. I certainly want to ask about phasing and server deployment coming up here. But before we get into that, I did want to ask, you mentioned the launcher very, very, very briefly. I wanted to ask a couple questions about how the launcher has kind of affected our ability, or your ability in particular, to release these servers. In general, just starting out the subject, how has the launcher enabled you to do this a little bit easier versus just trying to get the client out? How has the launcher empowered you, if it has?
Oh wow! I mean, the launcher, it's fairly new, so we're still working out some kinks. But having a launcher for any game, it makes deployment of updates so much easier, especially when I was mentioning earlier how most private servers in this community have always been server-side changes. Having a client-side a change is quite difficult because you have to send files to the players, and that's a challenge if you don't have a launcher. If you have to say, hey guys, click on this link and download this file and put it into this folder and extract this here and there, that's really not something that a lot of people want to do. So the launcher enables us to update the client side with ease. Players don't even know that their game's being updated, so we can deliver any sort of changes on the fly and without people knowing. So it's been huge, especially for client updates. For language updates, because as we launch the server, we will have, I'm sure, people mentioning, hey, this is spelled wrong or this is capitalized wrong or whatever, and it's gonna happen. And instead of us having to say, hey guys, download this whole new 10 megabyte file and put it here, it's gonna do it automatically, which is great.
Now, following up on that, and I wanted to ask specifically about this, will the language localization be a part of the launcher itself? How are you all implementing the ability to switch between Spanish and Portuguese, and I assume English as well, when in regards to the servers?
Yeah, it's not totally finalized yet, but the plan is, as far as I understand it when speaking with Torta, is we will have, just like in the top right-hand corner where you choose English or Chinese right now, you'll have the option, or I think even German's on there, you'll have the option to choose Spanish or Portuguese, and that will change the language of your client as well. So everything will be shifted based on what your language is chosen.
So, like I was mentioning there, people can still choose to use English on the South American servers?
Absolutely. Yeah, for
I
sure.
love that. I love
You can
that.
use Chinese if you want.
There we go. Accessibility there. I really love to hear that. Vrograg, do you have any other questions about kind of the lead up to these servers launching? Any questions on the before times, as one might say?
Yeah, I have a couple quick ones because I just can't help myself. I have to know, Nito, when determining what shorthand the team would use when referencing the South America server, why do they keep saying SA? Are they aware that that is phonetically identical to SA in Spanish and how that might be confusing?
I was thinking actually when I first heard essay of something else that's
Yeah,
more
well, that's
North
true.
American.
I kept it PG with my question, but
Yeah.
I mean, I kept seeing that. I'm like, oh man, I know it's South America, but like something else? No, I mean, Spanish people are going to go crazy with this.
Yeah, I mean that's actually really funny. I haven't actually heard the fact. I never put that together. That essay sounds like essay. That's really funny. It's not set in stone necessarily. Like there's nothing other than our web URL, which is so easy to change. We
Mhm.
have considered changing it to LATAM, Latin America,
Yep.
which might be the route to go. It's just that's a lot longer, and I think it was more out of convenience, and it wasn't a thing that we thought about. But I mean, who knows? We might change it in the future. But that's really funny. I didn't even think about that.
And another quick one, because I've seen this talked about, because if you've watched my channel, I made like a nice quick primer on how to use the launcher. I was given an early beta version that
Mhm.
also had the language panel.
Yeah,
And the one, by the way, shouts out to Haxer who developed that. Great job. I love it. It's
yeah,
it's
it's great.
amazing. It's been great for the team. It's been great for the community. But my question was, and I don't even know if you can answer this question, but when you go to pick the Portuguese or Spanish option, which flag will be next to those languages? Because that surprisingly is a rather contentious thing.
It is, yeah. So in Brazil, they speak Portuguese, but they prefer to use the Brazil flag next to the Portuguese language locale. Same with Brazil for Spanish. They're not going to use the Spain flag. They'll use the
You,
Brazilian
you
flag.
mean you mean
Or
Mexico?
sorry, Yeah, sorry, Argentina. So like
Yeah.
Argentina
Okay.
speaks
Yeah.
Spanish, which our biggest player base
Oh.
is because we did some polling for where everybody lived, just so we can kind of figure out where we're going to place a server. And our biggest our biggest player base is from Argentina, Brazil, and Colombia right now. So yeah, so I think we use the Spanish flag for Spanish, but we use the Brazilian flag for Portuguese, I think.
Yeah,
It's very
I still
specific.
have to talk to Haxer about, like, I'm from the US, but you should probably put the UK flag for English.
Oh,
Because on the launcher, you change it to the American flag, and I'm like,
yeah.
I don't even know what the rules are about that. But I remember there were people in my comments going like, "Wait, you said Portuguese, but I only see the Brazilian flag," and I'm like, "I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Y'all have fun."
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, they're proud
Mhm.
people. But I'm pretty sure for any Spanish speaking announcements, we've always used the Spain flag for them, and then I think for any Portuguese, we use the Brazilian flag, if that's correct. Yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
I'll
Yeah.
take your word for it. I was just I was genuinely curious because I can already see sort of some of the rivalries and some of that stuff coming down the pike for the South Seas server. So I think that's awesome.
I
I
think when
can't
I
wait to see
first
it.
when I first started, I actually accidentally used, I think, a Portuguese flag for Brazil, and they got a little
No, I'm
upset
sure
about
you
it.
were
So
corrected.
yeah, right away. Yeah, yeah.
And just a quick one, because I think this would be educational for the uh, English speaking audience. What what level of comprehension can Spanish speaking people have of Portuguese and vice versa? I've heard colloquially that they can kind of understand one another, that they can't. And do you think that's going to play a role in like the server itself?
As far as I know, and I'm not a language phoneticist or anything by any stretch, it's pretty easy for not easy. There are similarities where they're able to communicate, and also they all live fairly close together. South America's huge, but at least people mix, right?
Right.
So it's not a huge difference, but it's definitely clearly different. Like when we're translating from Portuguese to Spanish to English, you could very clearly see the difference between. I just think that it's easier for them to understand the differences than it is for like an English speaker like me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just figured it was worth asking because I've heard stories that like, oh, well, kind of understand, and I'm like, I'm from America, like I know one language, okay, and like y'all talking, that's cool. I don't know what that means, but cool. I'm excited. I have Google Translate, and
Exactly.
yeah. But I think that's great.
We're going to go ahead. We're going to take a short time out here now. When we come back, we're going to talk about the release plans and then post-release plans for the South America servers, and we'll be joined by community manager Akalix. We will be right back after this break with another look under the shell. The musical tracks for this episode have been removed due to YouTube copyright. To listen to the full episodes with music, tune in to Everlook Broadcasting with the in-game radio widget. Welcome back to A Look Under the Shell in our second segment here talking about the South American servers. We're joined now by Community Manager for Turtle, Akalix. Akalix, good day to you. How are you?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am doing lovely today. It is a fantastic, lovely, warm day. It has hit a sunny 70 degrees Fahrenheit here today, so I've been loving that. And the best part is it's gonna snow tomorrow.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. How?
I love spring weather.
Good. Okay. Well, good Lord. We're also again joined by Vrograg and Nito. Now we've talked a lot about how kind of the lead up has been to the South American servers, and we talked a little bit about how plans are for deployment. Just to start off the conversation on the actual launch of the servers, before we get into like phases or updates or direction for the group, when, if you know, are the servers going to go live?
So we just announced that the servers are going to go live on April 4th, which is only about 3 weeks away. Not even.
That's very soon. That's extremely
it's crazy.
soon.
2 weeks. Oh my gosh, yeah.
And how many servers are there going to be? Is there going to be a PvP and a PvE realm? Is it just one realm? What are we looking at for deployment for the servers?
Yeah, so we're just going to have one realm to start.
Mhm.
It's already up, running. It's being currently used as like a public test realm for us to be testing our translations. So it's up and ready to go already in Lima. And it's going to be PvE. We did a little Discord poll for all the players to kind of vote and give us some feedback. And based on that, we went with PvE instead of PvP. But we'll see what it's like. Like coming up on 20,000 people on Discord is a great number. We don't know what that's going to look like when we start opening registration, which should either be this Friday or next Friday. And that'll determine how many people are going to be able to connect to are going to be connecting to the server. And if it's in excess of 9,000 people at a time, we might have to look at getting a second server, which we can do pretty quickly.
So I just want to make sure we're as accurate as possible, because today, the day this is being aired, is Friday, March 28th, which is not this Friday that we're recording on. I should have mentioned that beforehand. So the Friday that you're saying that pre-release might happen is either the 21st or the 28th, yeah?
Right. We may have already opened registration. Otherwise, we're going to open it today.
Fair enough. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, good.
If that's not
good
more
luck.
confusing.
If it happens today, good luck to you. If it happened a week ago, I hope everyone had a darn good time.
Exactly.
Now, what is the pre-release going to look like? Are people going to generate characters? Are people going to go to a website to kind of get their names reserved? What's that going to look like for people?
Yeah, we're going to open up. So pre-registration is going to include a quick online registration, obviously, just like you did with anyone did with regular Turtle WoW. You just log onto our website, register, and you'll be able to log in right away, where we'll open up character creation. They just won't be able to access the world. So everyone will be able to create their banks, their alts, reserve their names, whatever they want to do. And then we'll also be giving away a free Murloc pet for anybody who pre-registers as well. So that'll only be available from the day we open up pre-registration until launch, and then anyone after that won't be able to get it.
Now, turning to the community side of things, you mentioned that there's the South American Discord. The people. Speaking of, by the way, how can people join the South American Discord? I want to make that very clear for folks.
Super easy. You just go to sa.turtle-wow.org, and you will see our landing page there, and you will see Discord and register, and all those buttons are all ready to go.
And to be clear, at the beginning, that's not SA. That is the letter S, the letter A.
Yeah.
Just making it clear.
Yeah, yeah.
Turning to the community side of things, Akalix, obviously you see a lot of the moving parts going on here. What has the run up to launch for the SA servers been like for you, and how much have you been involved?
So obviously the EU team has had some involvement, and different members of the team have had more involvement. Like, for example, the entire support team on the SA network has been being trained by our EU support team. Specifically, a lot of it has been done by one of our support leads, Cherry Pie, who's community favorite. I know a lot of people will be excited to hear that she is the one teaching them what's up and what's good. But obviously the team has had a hand here and there, but it's been a lot driven by the South American community, the new members of that team, who we're sort of letting them not just do whatever, but it is not the EU team's place to say how to do everything. It's a realm for the South American community by the South American. And I think that that's an important detail because it's such a passionate community. Like, I'm sure that that Neto has noticed that over his time running this project, is that this is one of the most passionate communities in gaming. So I've been a longtime esports fan, and always in terms of like international esports event, the South American teams, even if they're not anywhere close to a favorite, like in League of Legends, where the favorites are always by far the Korean team and the Chinese team, the fans of the South American teams will come out and they are some of the loudest there. It is crazy. So it is a passionate community. So it's been really exciting for me to see not an outside perspective, but a less directly involved perspective, where I can see like just how excited these people are for this new realm, for this place for their community to grow. So I'm really looking forward to.
And just to jump off of what Akalix said about the EU team, we wanted to make sure we included some of the senior people in the EU team to make sure that the training of the GMs was done at the same standard as the EU has, same with the CMs. And we want to make sure that the Turtle WoW experience is the same across the world. And we can't do that if we, are just kind of making things up as we go. So having the support of the EU team like Cherry and Vanth and Akalix and anyone else that I should have mentioned has been integral in our process to be consistent with our processes.
That's really good to hear that there's a deep understanding of we need to make sure that service is consistent and at an all-time high, no matter where people go for a server. Now, moving on to before I move on, because I do want to ask about phases here. It's probably going to be a big topic of discussion, but before we do that, Vrograg, any thoughts on your end or questions rather on the initial community launch? Anything you haven't asked yet?
Yeah, just a quick one. I know there are people that play on EU that really enjoy the RP aspect of Nordinar, and there is even some RP that happens on Telebim. Is there any plans? Are they already in place? Will there be any kind of RP GM support for South Seas? Are there any plans to support a role-playing community there, even if it's not, on the tin, so to say, for the server?
I think that'll depend on the team members that we find once we launch here, because those are typically driven completely by the community, right? That's not something that we do ourselves as Turtle WoW. I'm not really super familiar with our RP side of doing things.
Basically how it would work in this case is if there's a large enough RP community there, we can try to help give them that sort of support if they want.
Okay.
But it very much is community driven, where there needs to be a large community showing that wants that to be able to get those sort of resources, where we can have an RPGM help out with an event. And if that is something that really starts to pop off on the South Seas realms, we can definitely get someone trained up to do it on those realms specifically, who would be more fluent in the language, more fluent with like what people could be looking for there. So I would definitely say that that's a tentatively yes. No sort of guarantee of it will, but very possible.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that answers most of the questions I had about what kind of communities are going to be able to pop up. I know a lot of times people see RP on Northern R and think it's just role playing, and then there's people who see PVE and just think RP is not even there at all. So I understand it's generally community derived, but I wanted to know, generally what would the team's posture be with this? And it seems like you guys are taking we'll wait and see what the community does. Because, I mean, to be fair, a lot of this is the only server of its type. So I think that's a good stance to take.
I'll
Yeah,
also
for sure.
I'll also say this, and first off, Neto, I apologize for mispronouncing your name throughout
No,
the
it's
rest
okay.
of the show.
You
It's
have
not-
fallen prey once again.
No, listen. You didn't mispronounce it. I don't even know how I say it, so you can say it however you want. I know how to spell it. That's it.
How do you say Akalix?
I think that one's easy though.
I dislike all of you. I dislike Vrograg in particular. That's all. That's what I'll say. What
Majority of the
No, go ahead.
I will say that one is a very funny one because a majority of the turtle team agrees on pronouncing it as Akalix, and the majority of my friends from just various places in real life all call it Akalix. So
Akalix. I don't like that.
Here, the situation with that, Neto, is Vrograg has poisoned the community, and that's all I'm going to say on that. Back to the topic I wanted to mention, and in regards to what we were just talking about with the roleplay community, sometimes when it comes to business management, because I believe you mentioned that that's what you do a lot for a day job or something similar, yeah.
Yeah.
There are situations like this where sometimes the best choice is not to make a choice and to simply let things develop on their own. It's a scary thing to do in business management. It is a place of discomfort, but sometimes it is the best choice. So I'm really glad that that's kind of the direction the Turtle team is taking on that. Moving on, because this is a big topic. A lot of people are going to want to know this information. Phases and releases for the South American server. Neto, how are the phases going to pan out for everyone who is excited to roll on what may very well be a fresh server?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely gonna be a fresh server. We've posted our phases on Discord, so anybody can hop on there and take a quick look if they'd like on the South American server. But we will have 6, I guess you can say 6 phases. There's gonna be, yeah, we'll say 6. The first phase is going to be because we've been in this world, this private server world for so long. A lot of us have different experiences in it, and we've seen servers start up and close down, and the beginnings and the middle and the ends of the lifetimes of these things. And we kind of came up with this 6 phase structure that will be based on mostly raid content, just like you would experience if you were back in 2001 or whenever WoW came out. And you would you would play for 3 months, and then Molten Core came out, and then Blackwing Layer and all this stuff. So we've broken it down into 6 phases. The first phase is going to be 1 month long, and we're calling that phase 0 because we're not releasing any raids in that first month. We're going to commit to letting the players use that first month to level up their characters, get their alts ready, get prepared for raiding. That will have a lot of our custom dungeons that Turtle WoW has created, so those will be available in the very beginning of the game. But phase 0 is just going to be kind of a raid prep. And then from phase 1 to phase 5, we're going to be going through each raid. So, like for example, phase 1 will be Onyxia and Molten Core, and then phase 2 will have Karazhan, like our custom content, or our custom made Karazhan. I can't remember the name of it because my brain is broken right now. Lower Karazhan. And we'll also have world bosses in each phase, and it's going to be very structured in the content that is released in each one. They're each going to be so phase 1 will be 1 month, phase 1 will be 2 months, and then phase 2 to phase 5 are all going to be 3 months long. So we're going to give people a good amount of time in each phase to complete content, to get themselves geared up and prepared for the next one. And then by the end of the timeline, we're saying phase 6, but really phase 6 is just wherever the heck we are after about a year in the Turtle WoW world. All that Turtle WoW content will become available.
So when it comes to people wanting to hop into Kara 40 anytime this year, that's just not going to be on the table for anyone.
Yeah, that's the only annoying thing in my mind. If I was a player, I would love to be able to play that, but it doesn't make sense because it's a higher tier raid dungeon, and you're gonna need to progress through all of the other tiers in order to be able to even get into Karazhan and to be able to even kill anything in there. So it will probably take about close to a year before the South American servers will see Karazhan, which will give us plenty of times for bug fixes.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that is roughly what happened with
Ooh.
with Telebim as well. Like it took them about the same amount of time to get there. So it's there's already a well established roadmap, and hopefully all the events like the Gates opening event and the Nax Ramus opening event will all go smoothly, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like people love to compete. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Right?
I know you're being facetious. Yeah,
Mhm.
people love to compete in this game, and I think they love to, they'll have their guilds, and soon the prominent guilds will pop up in the community, and we'll see them competing Horde versus Alliance, see who can be the server first for all these different things. So I think having that phased progressive gating will really make people want to play more and want to be more active in the game and compete.
I'm
It
so
wa- it
excited for
wasn't
this.
made clear, was it, that I mean, this is going to be a PVE server, but is it going to allow cross faction grouping for PVE content?
That has not been yet determined.
Interesting, because obviously on a PvP server, it kind of has to be that way.
Mhm.
But if Nordinar is the model, right, then you would allow that. But obviously, this is a new server and a new vibe, so you can have Horde versus Alliance for these things, but then you can also have guild versus guilds,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
My what Vrograg brings up in cross faction and that kind of activity also makes me ask, because in other phased server releases, the different battlegrounds are tied to different phases. Are all battlegrounds going to be available from the start for the South American realm, or are they going to be tied to different phases as well?
They're going to be available right from the very beginning. That's the current plan. We want everything out right away in terms of
Yep.
PvP.
But the rank 14 gear is waiting for a later phase.
Right.
I believe I did read that. So
Yeah,
you
you're
can
right.
still rank up, but you can't get the best gear. You can still get the battleground specific gear, I think.
Yeah, we're going to be gating the epic PvP gear. So it's not, because it's AQ level, which is not until I think phase
Yeah.
4. So
yeah, I think so.
yeah.
Alrighty. Akalix, when it comes to the community and phased content, obviously with Telebem, we got to see how that worked out. Were there any lessons learned from Telebeam that are being applied to the phased content for the South American realm?
There were a couple things that got adjusted in terms of timeline. I want to say that it was mostly world bosses that got moved around, and ZG got moved, I believe. I'm trying to remember if there was anything else.
Yeah, there was just some confusion around BWL and ZG. I think that was
Yeah, I
pretty
think that
much
was
it.
that
Maybe
was the
something else.
main change in there, was those two, plus I think Asterius and Nerubian Overseer got moved. back where I missed here.
I while we're talking about world bosses, and phased content, I understand that coming with the new patch for Nordinar and Telebim will be a way to have summonable raid bosses, summonable world bosses.
Yes.
Is that going to be available on launch for when they have world bosses on South Seas?
That would most likely be the case, just because it's going to be implemented on Turtle. Basically, I believe it's the day after the patch releases in EUCN that the South Seas Realm releases, so they should have it basically on, I believe, unless something.
So it's more a
Unless
server
there's-
mechanic issue, server mechanic implementation than, oh, this is a part of like phase 4
Phase
and
nine.
how we do bosses now.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
why they love me. I ask the questions that they're not prepared for.
Well, the bosses will be still gated by phase, the world bosses.
Yeah, of
So
course.
you're not going to see Kazakh until phase 2, or you're not going to see any of the Dragons of Nightmare until probably phase 3. So whatever mechanic we use to summon those, or whatever we create, will still be limited. The content will still be limited.
Okay.
That makes sense. Vrograg, any other thoughts or questions about the South America server launch and schedule?
My only question is mostly one for concern about the continued prospering of that community. Now, I think it's no surprise on Telebim on early launch, there was a bunch of what I'll call fresh chasers who came, flooded the server, and then, did whatever thing they wanted to do and then bounced. And then Telebim slowly had to build up from sort of a population glut after that. I'm wondering if the experience with Telebim offered any insights into the launch for this. Obviously, there's going to be people that are going to want to play there just because of its unique ability to have localizations in other languages. But is there anything in the works to sort of address this or sort of keep an eye on that kind of thing? Because I know there was a little bit of a lull for Telebim that some of the people in the community were bummed about low population and that kind of stuff. And, that can also affect future projections for, are we going to have other servers and stuff like that?
So, obviously, with any given new realm, there is always going to be a population boom at the start. So, you can always expect that the realm is going to go down a little bit in population in the coming weeks, months after it originally launched, just because everybody wants to go, ooh, okay, yeah, it just came out. I want to go play the new big thing. And then it cools back down when people are like, okay, well, now I want to go back to playing what I was doing before. Now I want to go back to this. Now I want to go do that. But everybody sees it as, oh, big, I need to get in on the launch day for this. I want to be there for that. So that's something where we very much know that that's just going to happen, and we hope that we can convey to the community that no, that doesn't mean that the server's imploding. That just means that you and all of your friends all got together to come play today because it launched. Now you're playing tomorrow, and your other friend is playing in 2 days from now, and 2 of your other buddies are going to play in 3 days from now, and that sort of thing. Not everyone's on at the same time, but everybody tries to be there at the start, and that sort of happened. So it's going to be something where we're going into it with that expectation. We're hoping that the community goes into it with that expectation, doesn't immediately doomsday the minute that it goes from like full maximum pop down 200 players because they decided to go back and raid Karazhan. So I'd say that, and I would say that we also are in a very good position technologically for the server to launch. I don't know if anyone remembers the launch for Telebim, but that was one of, if not the smoothest launch experiences that people have had on basically any private server.
Yeah,
where
that checks
we had
out.
thousands of players in starter zones and they weren't lagging. They were having no issues with it whatsoever. It was one of the smoothest, best launch experiences in the private server scene historically ever, besides like a 10-person server launch, and it's like, okay, at that point I could run that on my backup PC up. So managing to get thousands of players online, completely stable, completely issue free, is something that we're both A, really proud of, and B, excited for with a new realm launching, because that means that we aren't super worried about, oh, it's just going to be miserable the first week because everyone's trying to get on. No, you'll be able to play the game.
It's probably going to be more stable than Blizzard, honestly, for their launches.
Yeah.
No comment. I've seen some shit.
Mike, a quick point on what Akalix just said. I think the key for us to be successful in this is to stick to the method that we know works. There's always going to be doomers. There's always going to be people out there saying dead server when you've got 10,000 population. It's normal. It's unfortunate that the community can be like that sometimes. But I think the people who love Turtle WoW and who love to spend time in the game every day or every week or whenever they get a moment, those are the people that we really want to cater to. And there's going to be that natural decline. It's normal and it's okay. But we're going to stick to our plan of we're going to be launching and we're going to continue our marketing. We're going to continue getting the word out there. We're going to continue letting people know that we're in South America for for the next year after launch. We're going to have marketing going. So it's going to happen where you're going to get those crappy people, but it's okay. It's expected, and we have a plan for it.
I just have one quick thing too. This is something I know people in the community are going to be curious about. There is, of course, a donation shop for cosmetic things and convenience items. Is there going to be a different donation shop for the South American server?
Compared to European?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking? Because the Chinese is also different, right?
Like I know the Chinese one's completely separate, and that has more to do with like geopolitics and stuff. But I'm asking because I know the South American server has like everything's different as far as like currencies and stuff like that. I also know that with Blizzard, they have like different subscription costs, for instance, I know in South America. So I don't know if that was taken into account for the donation shop and things like that.
Yeah. So there is definitely going to be a difference compared to the European shop in terms of what's available, especially at the very beginning. When we launch the very first month, we're going to look and see to limit certain things like EXP tokens or anything that's going to give people any sort of in-game advantage for competitive things like server firsts and stuff like that. So anything like that is going to definitely not be there for the very beginning, but it hasn't all been finalized just yet. And in the pricing, we think we'll probably have to make a change, as you mentioned, the cost of living and the value on the peso or the dollar or whatever it is that we're going to be using down there is different than it is in Europe. So it's something that we're aware of and definitely going to be addressing when we launch.
Can I reserve my name Vrograg now?
Absolutely. I can do it for you if you'd like.
Let's go.
Don't actually do that. Hold on a sec. Time out. No. Plus, this is airing potentially after that happened. So
that's true. I have Vrograg on Telebim. I'm gonna want to do reporting on South Seas as well. So I need a Vrograg there too. That's all.
I might try to when it happens. I'm not gonna do any insider trading on this. I might try to grab Lido. We'll see. We'll see.
Ooh.
Akalix, anything that you might want to mention before we close up shop on the South American realm?
Not anything particular that I'd like to mention. I'm very excited to see how the community takes off after launch, because I can see that the team is very excited. I can see that the community is very excited. So I'm very excited myself to see how it goes.
Very well then. Neto, anything that you want to mention? The floor is yours. Anything as our lead, at least for the project. Anything you want to mention?
No, honestly, I think we covered a lot of stuff here. We have, for anybody who speaks Spanish or Portuguese, we have done some interviews, either myself and Akalix, or also Zerfi, which is our support lead. He's done a few interviews with some Spanish streamers, and then I think Explorer did one also for a Portuguese streamer. So there are also other versions of this out there in their native languages. So feel free to look those up. They're also on our Discord, so you can hop in there. But yeah, I'm just hyped. I'm ready. I think that this has probably been the biggest hype I've had in private server scenes in a very, very long time. So it's going to be great, and I'm excited to get started.
It's really exciting. Now, because I can't close this on a clean note, I'm going to stir the pot a little bit. And
Great.
Akalix is going to try and stab me as soon as I ask this question, and I'm going to ask it anyhow. For those of you here, and this is kind of an open question for all of us, with the release of now South American servers, we have the Southeast Asian servers, we have the European servers, multiple realms there. We now have these wonderful realms across the world serving different purposes and catering to different wonderful communities that are part of the greater turtle community. Where are we, as again, those of us that are here, and I feel almost bad asking this, but there has been talk about, could we have a hardcore realm? And I want to know your guys' thoughts here before we close up shop. So
that took a left turn.
I
can
know,
tell you
I know.
exactly my thoughts on it and exactly what it would take.
Go ahead. I mean, go ahead.
Overpopulate Nordinar. If Nordinar gets to the point where it is overpopulated and is not enjoyable to play on anymore, I think at that point I would be able to make an hardcore realm. But the hardcore community on Turtle knows, especially the hardcore 60 community knows, since 2022, I have been advocating for a hardcore realm, but it's not something the team is in.
It's just not feasible.
As of right now, it's a matter of hardcore adds more benefits to the network being part of Nordinar and Telebeam and all that than it does as its own realm. I would like in the future to make it its own realm, but that's something where it will take a lot of convincing other people on the team to do so. And I think the easiest way to make that convincing argument would be for Nordinar to get too populated again, to where in the past we have had the SEA Realms launch, we've had Telebeam launch. I think that the next move would be if we got the point of Nordinar being too packed to be a comfortable realm to play on anymore. I think the next move then would be a hardcore realm. At least that is what I would do, and that is what I would push to do.
Interesting thoughts. Again, this comes from me having experienced a hardcore realm on its own recently, and while the end of that was heartbreaking for me, Torrin died. It did show that the experience is so much different when the entire community on a server is playing by the same rules, and I think it adds so much. Vrograg, you had a reaction there when I asked the question. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you were talking about location A, location B, location C, and then you're like, what about hardcore? Where's location D? Like,
I mean,
is there any
fair.
talk about like
the fact of the matter
like,
is that as we add servers, we are kind of dividing up the community, and it is something that I want to be cognizant of in any situation, even if it's, hey, we're spinning up a new realm for this region.
Well, I think, and I'm not, I do agree to some extent that a hardcore only server is a separate thing and it is its own community. But by and large, what I have seen from the Turtle community and the Turtle team is that there is as much effort put into making everything work as there is with its longevity. And I think that's an important thing to note because early on, was hardcore just a fad? Does it just come and go? Because the last thing you want is a genuinely dead server because, the hardcore fad fades. And I can see the logic behind why they haven't done one yet. And I would say that there is a point in which a population is too big to be comfortable. Nordinar has a lot of people, but it has a lot of people spread out over the entire time zone of the world.
Yes.
So that makes it a little bit more comfy. And we're not looking at the population spikes of the summer of 2023, where it got absolutely, 10K and there was a queue. I think there's wisdom in, hey, we have a big population center that's adding a bunch of population to our server. Let's allow them to have something of their own. Hardcore does make up a decent amount, but many hardcore players also have non-hardcore tunes that they play on Nordinar. So I think it's a complex topic. I am kind of on the fence about this one. I know a lot of people would like to see it, but I don't know its long-term sort of down the road effects, essentially.
No, that makes total sense. And you bring up a very good point about what happens when we don't have enough active population that are still playing hardcore. That's really rough. That's a very tough question to ask.
How many hardcore raiding teams are there on Nordinar?
I have no idea. No
3,
clue.
I believe.
3?
Yep.
Okay.
So, a server for 120 people? Like, that doesn't sound great.
Currently, yes. Now,
yeah.
My thought is, if there was a way for hardcore to exist on its own and be its own community and really kind of come into what it can do, I think it would attract a lot more players, because I know the thing stopping me from playing hardcore on Turtle, because I fully admit I play hardcore classic still. I love it.
We all have like vices, like,
and I totally admit to that.
You pay Papa Blizzard, I get it.
I would not play hardcore on Turtle under any circumstances because the population is mixed. That is stopping me. And that has made me ask the question, how many other people is that stopping? And that's kind of where this initially came from for me.
Yeah. I totally see what you're saying, but I mean, you still didn't say what killed your Torn, and I'm assuming it's a skill issue.
It was a knowledge issue in Stratham.
Ooh.
I missed
You got
the
that
pull.
far?
Oh, yeah, no, I got 60, and I got an Uber's key, and I got a few other things on it, and a Lionheart helm.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
man.
no, it hurt. It hurt.
Ooh, that's tough.
It stung. Anywho, Neto, you don't have to say anything. You're welcome to contribute to this conversation, though. Do you have any thoughts on if we eventually get some kind of hardcore realm, if it's a good idea, if it's a bad idea? You're welcome to say anything if you do want to.
Yeah, I pretty much have the same thought process from a technical perspective. It's super easy. Turning on a server, making it hardcore, that's not a problem. The challenge, as you guys have already mentioned, is the people, right? Like, the question is, in hardcore, does community matter? And I think that is the backbone of this game, and I think community does matter. But at the same time, I've seen private servers out there that are running hardcore that do run with like 40 people, and they all just, they all play together and they only do hardcore stuff, and they're okay with that. So it's a tough one. I think that if it's going to be successful, it's got to have a good amount of people. I think there's probably a minimum, probably like 500 or something like that. If you can get around with 500 hardcore people and consistently keep that number, I think it's doable. But other than that, it's a challenge. You need the community for sure.
That brings us right back to the question of how. And I'm not going to drag this on any longer. But I will ask Akalix, if people want a hardcore realm, how is the best way for them to express their opinion and their interest in that regard?
It's a bit hard because it's been something that's been discussed to death at this point. Matter of, as of right now, I can tell you to post on the forums about it, but I don't believe that the stance is going to change regarding a hardcore realm in at least the foreseeable future time being, unless other circumstances change, because the reason that we keep hardcore and softcore on the same realms currently, there's a handful of them, and I don't foresee them exactly just changing. They're not factors of we don't think that it's something that would be fun or that people would want, because it's obviously fun and it's obviously something that a good number of hardcore players want. The problem is that overall, to the entirety of the network's health, it's better for them to be on the existing realms than on their own, because it get, not to go into detail, but there's a handful of.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. Again, that's totally fine. This was a wild tangent that I wanted to just throw around real fast, since we were talking about realm development.
The community side of things is so important, not just for the number of people, but there's the economy of the server has to exist. And if you don't have enough people fishing, you don't have enough people mining, or different professions, or all those things that make the game more robust and help you progress through content and whatnot, it's very difficult. So I think that once, like Akalix said, if Nord hits a certain number and we can afford to lose those players and have them go into a hardcore realm instead and really start pumping that up, then it's doable. But it's kind of wait until that happens, sort of thing.
That's so fair. Thank you. Appreciate your guys contributing on this discussion. I surprised you a little bit on it, but it was lurking in my brain and I needed to get it out.
Of course.
With that being said, though, we are at the end for this look under the shell. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you, Akalix. Thank you, Neto. Thank you, Vrograg. Appreciate all of you. I'm so excited for the South American server launch coming up here, and I'm sure the entire community is. Neto, remind us again the date for that launch.
Yeah, April 4th. You can go to sa.turtle-wow.org, or you can go to our Discord, which is discord.gg/turtle. Oh, shoot.
Oh, no.
Remember what it is.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. I screwed that up. Hold on. I can get it for you.
No, take your time. Take your time. We can spend a moment here.
turtlewow-sa is what it is. So discord.gg/turtlewow-sa. That's our Discord.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you so much, all three of you. Thank you to the Turtle community for continuing your support of Turtle, and thank you for listening to this show. We will see you after Karazhan 40 launches. See what I did there? For another look under the shell.